Alright, this video will be on my new ram pump. And if you're not familiar with a ram pump, they're designed to pump water fairly decent distance with a fairly decent head, but no external power source. Basically just the flow, the gravity of water is what powers it. So, it's made from just commonly available pipe fittings. Ram pumps only have two moving parts, one right here and one right here. What these are brass swing check valves, and I have one here I can kind of show you. It has a little flapper in there. So basically it's just a one-way valve. So on this outside you have it so that the valve hangs open and the water pressure actually has to lift up and close the valve like that. And on this other side, it's the exact opposite, so that the water pressure opens it up, but it can't come back. And what happens is, you set this up in a creek or a stream or, a pond that has access to like a hillside or something like that. They won't work in wells, but pretty much every other water source, if you can get the water moving, it'll work. This is my drive pipe here, and this is PVC 1 inch, and it's just for the test. Drive pipes are best if made out of steel, but for testing purposes this PVC will work. And it runs right up here to my porch, to a 4-gallon bucket with a whole bunch of silicone gobbed on it. And basically this is just my water source, my temporary water source to test this thing. And I have a garden hose here that I just pour water into it. So the water comes flowing down this 1-inch pipe, and because it has some weight behind it, some gravity behind it, it has some force. It continues through this pipe and it'll flow out this valve until the flow rate reaches a point where the little flapper can no longer hold it back, and it slams shut, and that creates what's known as a water hammer effect. The water has nowhere to go but up through this check valve, and this is a 2-inch by 30-inch piece of PVC. It has a cap welded, I'm used to fabricating, cap glued on the top. And 15 inches of this, basically half the distance, is filled with closed cell foam, or more commonly known as a water weenie. Basically, and what this acts like is a bladder, closed cell form. So every time this thing pumps, it'll compress this and rebound, and compress and rebound. This is the simplest way I found to build them. Other people use bicycle inner tubes and things like that. But anyhow, the water slams this shut, it's forced up into here, and it compresses the air that's in this tube to a point where the air wants to spring back because it's been compressed from that water hammer effect. So it tries to spring back and push the water. The problem is it can't go backwards through this check valve, so its only way out is through this T and out my hose here. And basically I've got this hose that runs up the side of my house, and we'll try to get out of the sunlight up to the top of a 6-foot ladder sitting on the edge of my roof here, and that's probably about 15 foot ahead, with basically 4 foot of fall from my source bucket up here. So this thing, it's pretty neat. We'll go ahead and get it fired up for you. Basically we'll come over here and turn on my man-made spring here, and that starts filling my bucket. So we'll come over here. Okay. So we just drop that in there, start filling the bucket. Oh, the pump's already started clicking, I can hear it. So basically, that's what happens. The water's flowing, it slams that little check closed, and we're building up pressure, although I think my gauge is bad because I'm not reading any pressure, but the pump certainly works. So basically gravity is forcing this pump to operate. Now we'll crack this valve here, and you'll hear the second valve start clicking. Oh, she stopped. We got too greedy. Just give her a poke. I gotta go slow down my man-made stream here. Okay, so pump's going. Sorry about that. We'll start cracking this valve open. And before too long, there we go, I just heard it. We're pumping water. Although you can't see it falling right now. Let's get in a spot where you can see. There we go. I'll try to get up there. Boy, it's really hard to see. I'll try to get some blue sky behind it. It is hard to see. Anyhow, that's the water we're getting pumped out of it. It's about 10% or so of the water that's going through the pump actually gets pumped to where you're going. And while this may not look like a very large amount of water, you got to remember that this thing runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, non-stop. That small amount of water, although I haven't done a test on it as of yet, you know, that's probably, I don't know, half a gallon a minute or so. You know, times that by 24 hours, that's a pretty substantial amount of water for relatively no cost. I mean, with the exception of buying the fittings. So we'll come back over here. And I just love that it works completely off-grid, you know, just off the water hammer effect. And something's definitely wrong with my pressure gauge, because normally it's about 20 psi or so. But that's no biggie. And you can see the whole setup shaking because of the water hammer. So there it is, little weekend project I was working on. Please rate and comment.